If you have young children, then you know just how much they like to ask why about almost everything. Now, I used to be convinced that the best thing that I could do as a parent is answer every single one of my kids' questions, if only to provide them with the information that they need to continue to learn and grow. Of course, I've seen other parents eventually get exhausted with this process, and while I can certainly understand and relate to the frustration of having to answer yet another why question, I've always believed that the best thing that I could do or should do is answer every single one of these questions. However, I recently discovered a much better approach for answering these kinds of questions and the exact kinds of words and phrases to use in order to better guide the growth and development of my kids. And all of this while reading the very popular parenting book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber and Elaine Mazlish. As the authors explain, when kids ask questions, they aren't necessarily looking for answers. Sometimes they are, but often they're simply verbalizing something that they've already been thinking about internally. So while providing answers can be helpful, it's often far more useful to provide them with an opportunity to work through their own thoughts on the subject. When we reply to their question with an answer, we unintentionally rob them of the opportunity to test and refine their own thinking. Yes, we provide them with an answer to their one question, but it's much more valuable for them to have the opportunity to consider possible answers, make potential mistakes, gather more information, and eventually discover the correct answer. This process of working through these stages is much more valuable than the answer to any one question. It really provides them with an opportunity to get better at connecting ideas and refining their thinking. And the younger we can get them started on this journey, the better. Even if their initial ideas are wildly inaccurate, it's still a chance for them to think and work through ideas. So this begs the question, what should we do differently? Well, when a child knows nothing about a subject, answering their first question or two can be helpful. But if they continue asking questions, or if we have strong reason to believe that they're already familiar with the subject, then it's very important that we switch gears and get curious about what they are thinking about the subject. So instead of answering their question, we can respond by saying, "That's an interesting question. What do you think?" Or we can just mirror their question back to them. Why do we get thirsty after a workout? Over time, as they learn to share more of their own thoughts, we can simply create space for them to do so by saying something like, "You wonder about that, huh?" Or even just a simple and thoughtful, can prompt them to jump right back in and share their own thoughts on the subject. I've been taking this approach with my 3.5-year-old for a few weeks now, and he constantly surprises me with the interesting connections that he makes. For example, he recently pointed at my Gatorade bottle and said, "Why do you drink that after biking?" Now, when he asks a question like this, I typically respond by saying something like, "Why do I drink that after biking?" And often when I pose this kind of question, he'll come back to me with something like, "I don't know." In which case, I'll respond by asking, "What's your best guess?" And in this case, he answered, "Is it because you sweat while you're biking?" And of course I replied, "That's right." The joy on his face when this happens is priceless, and I absolutely love it. And even in the case where his guess is incorrect, he's still having an opportunity to think. And that alone, rather than just asking questions, but really thinking and trying to make connections, that in and of itself is valuable. Now, another great option is to help our kids find answers outside of the home. So when they ask a question, we can respond by saying something like, "I wonder if the pet shop owner has any suggestions." Or, "I wonder if there's a book at the library that has an answer." Or even, "I'm not sure. Who else could you ask to find an answer?" This is a powerful way to foster independence and to help our kids realize that, like them, we don't have all the answers, and that's okay. We can seek help from other people, and of course, they can too. Now, if you're interested in more useful parenting advice from How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk by Adele Faber and Elaine Mazlish, I recently published a short video covering my favorite insights from the book. And you can find a link to that right here in the video player, as well as down in the video description text.